Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk about solid shapes and 3D drawings. Okay, a 3D figure is a three-dimensional drawing represented on a two-dimensional plane, the length, width, and depth of a three-dimensional figure. Okay, so it's when we draw a two-dimensional plane, remember is like our XY axis, right? We have an X and a Y, and so it's representing a three-dimensional figure just with these two dimensions. We have three types of 3D figures that we're going to look at. Okay, the first type is called a one-point perspective. The second is called a two-point perspective. All right, so these two are similar in that they're both perspective drawings, and then the other one that we have is an isometric drawing. Okay, so we have perspective drawings, 1 point and a 2 point, and then we have the isometric. All right, a 1 point perspective drawing and a 2 point perspective drawing are drawn as you would see it naturally with the human eye. Okay, so like for example, if when you look down a hallway, you notice that the hallway looks like it gets narrower, but it really doesn't. It's the same length and width the whole way down. When you're looking at it from a long ways away, it looks like it gets narrower. So that's a perspective drawing. Okay, the 1 point perspective is when we draw just from looking at it, looking at 1 point. Okay, we call this a vanishing point. All right, and this is how the figure looks when we draw it from a 1 point perspective. Okay, a 2 point perspective is just that, when we draw it from 2 points. Okay, so we're looking at it from both of these sides. Okay, and the line that connects the 2 points that we're looking at it from is called the horizon. Okay. Now, an isometric drawing is not drawn from any type of perspective. It's usually just a corner view, okay? The main difference between a perspective drawing and an isometric drawing is that normally in an isometric drawing, the right angles that are drawn are 20 degrees and 160 degrees. Okay, so if you look at these angles right here, we know that these are 90 degrees, but in an isometric drawing, they're not drawn exactly to that. Okay, now in a perspective drawing, they're not the angles are not necessarily any type of angle. So we don't really know what the angle is, other than we know that it is 90 degrees, but if we were to actually measure it, it wouldn't be the same every time. But on an isometric drawing, it is. On a perspective drawing also, lines that we know are parallel are not always going to be parallel. Okay, if you notice on these lines, right, these all three should be parallel, but they're not exactly parallel. Whereas on an isometric drawing, all lines are exactly parallel. Okay, when we're talking about the length, width, and depth, we're talking about the actual figure, all right? We're talking about 2 points that a line segment. Okay, we're going to start off with depth first because it's the easiest one to define. Depth is the figures, the lines that give the figure from the front to the back, depending on the perspective that you're looking at it. So if this is our vanishing point right here, then the depth, right, we're looking at it from this side, from front to back would be AH. All right, now we also have other lines of depth. We have BG, and we have DE, and we have CF. Okay. Now, lines of width and length are not always defined. The only thing that's different about width and length is that they go different ways. So if you're given the width, then you know the length are the opposite lines. So we're just going to say that the width here is line DC, that's one of the widths. All right. So then we also know that EF is a width, and we know that AB is a width, and HG is a width. So then the length would be the up and down lines. So we would say that the lines are AD, BC, GF, and HE. The last thing that we're going to talk about are the faces of a cube. The faces are the squares, the quadrilaterals in 2 dimension that make up the cube. So we label them as 4 letters. Okay, and how we define the front, back, left, right, top, and bottom has everything to do with perspective. So if we're looking at this 1-point perspective right here, we're looking at J. Okay, then the front face is going to be A, B, C, D. Okay, because that would be how, that's the front part of the cube that we're looking at, right? Like if we're standing, like there's the door of the house and we're standing right here. This is the front. Okay, so then the back would be H, G, F, E. Right? The left face then would be the square that's on the left here. So we would say A, H, E, D. And then the right face would be the opposite one. So we'll say B, G, F, C. Okay, the top face would be like if it's the top of the house, right? So we're going to say D, C, F, E. And then the bottom face would be like the floor. So we would say A, B, G, H. And that is the end of 3D Figures Part 1.